Welcome to the Jacksonville First Seventh-day Adventist Church podcast, where we listen, learn, and love together. Our speaker today is Pastor Jonathan Pinato.
I don't know about you, but if I have to choose between comfort or discomfort, between being comfortable or being uncomfortable, I'll choose comfort every time. And if I have to choose between doing something that's easy or doing something that's hard, I'll choose the easy thing every time. Or going a step further, if I have to choose between the easy way or the hard way, I'll choose the easy way every time. And if I have to choose between peace and conflict, I'll choose peace every single time. And then I read this. It is obstacles that make men strong. It is not helps, but difficulties, conflicts, rebuffs that make men of moral sinew. Too much ease, too much comfort, and avoiding responsibility have made weaklings and dwarfs of those who ought to be responsible men of moral power and strong spiritual muscle. Now, let me clarify. There's nothing wrong with comfort or the easy way or with peace. In fact, there's the saying, work smarter, not harder, which I think is a good mantra. And the idea behind that saying is the importance of being efficient at your work and skillful at what you do, using a sharp blade rather than a dull one, right? But some things in life only come the hard way. There are some things in life where there is no easy way. And the same goes for peace versus conflict. Sometimes in life, we have to grapple with issues that will only bring conflict. There's no way around it. And some of us know that, and so we choose the easy way out. We try to sweep things under the rug. We try to avoid things in the hopes of having peace. But that peace really comes at too high a cost, and we actually do ourselves harm by taking the easy way out. And so there's this meme floating around the internet. I shared it with you a few weeks ago. And on this meme, it has two different images showing two different generations. Underneath one of the pictures, one of the images is a teenager from the 1940s, 18-year-old, serving in World War II, and he's in his military uniform, and he's riding a motorcycle. He has his rifle on his back, his helmet, goggles, his boots, ready to go into combat. The second image is from a teenager from our day, 2018, 2019, 2020s, and I forget exactly what you call them on social media, but he has these doggy, as in dog, these dog ears on him and a little doggy nose on his face. And above both images is a caption. Above the image of the soldier, the teenager of World War II, is it says 2020, and it's a father speaking to his son in the year 2020. And it says, "Son, look, I found a picture of your grandfather." And that picture is his grandfather serving in the military when he was a teenager, 18 years old, ready to go into combat. Then there's a caption above the image of the teenager from our days with doggy ears and doggy nose, doggy snout on his face. And above that image is a caption that reads 2060, the year 2060 in the future. And again, it is a father speaking to his son. And he says, "Son, look, I found a picture of your grandfather." And while this meme may not be a fair representation between the differences between generations, I'm sure the teenagers back in the 1940s, they also had the opportunity to be silly. I'm sure they probably did silly things like that. We just probably didn't have the opportunity to capture the silliness the way we have the ability to capture silliness now. Everyone carrying a camera and a phone and social media and all these kinds of things, right? So this meme may not necessarily be a fair representation between the generations, but could it be that there's a difference between 18-year-olds back then during the 1940s, those 18-year-olds that served in World War II, and 18-year-olds now? Could there be some truth to the fact that there is a difference between those two generations of 18-year-olds? And so I wonder, though, along these same lines, how much influence do you think a mandatory draft had in shaping an entire generation of men? And so it's the 1940s, and you've been drafted to serve in the war. And you're 18 years old. And yes, you're 18 years old. You're just a kid. I know that 18-year-olds think that they're all grown up. At least that's what I thought when I was an 18-year-old. I thought I was all grown up. But everyone looking back realizes that when you're 18 years old, you're just a kid at that age. And so can you imagine you've been mandatorily drafted into the Second World War. You're 18 years old, and you've been sent off to war. And you're here at Normandy finding yourself on D-Day, and it's just horrific scenes that took place during D-Day. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Saving Private Ryan. I watched it once some time ago, and the reason I watched it is because someone said that it was their favorite movie, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's your favorite movie. Well, maybe let me take a look to see what it was that you liked about it so much. And I went into that movie, watching that movie, not knowing what to expect, and boy, those first few minutes, and I'm not ashamed of saying this, I had to close my eyes. I had to turn my head away. I could not watch those images. I can't watch those images. I don't want those images in my mind. And when you read reviews that were made of that movie and soldiers from World War II saying that those images in those first few minutes of the movie are the most realistic depictions of war and of combat and of death that they have seen in a movie up to that point. And I think about that, and I think and I say, is it a stretch? Is it a stretch to say that World War II marked and defined an entire generation of young men? Now, you want to know what defined my generation? Well, I'm going to show it to you on the screen. For those of you who can't see it, maybe you can hear it, and when you hear it, you'll probably be able to know exactly what it is that I'm showing. Here it is. You know what defined my generation? I'll show you. What you just heard was the little music to a video game from the 1980s called Super Mario Brothers. And whether I want to admit it or not, I grew up on it. That's what I grew up on. And whether I want to admit it or not, this here produces a different kind of man. My generation and the generations that have come after me are of a different stock of the generation of World War II, and there's no denying it. Now, a few weeks ago, we took a look at the qualities of masculinity, and I want to read just a few of them off the screen here when I was asking you, well, what does masculinity look like to you? What are those qualities of masculinity? Here's some of the qualities that you gave me. Integrity, dependability, valor, courage, industry, toughness, grit, conviction, loyalty, strength, responsibility, honor, chivalry, patience. And so as I read this list, the question comes to my mind, these are wonderful qualities, but how are they developed? How are they acquired, and how are they obtained? And here's the answer. It is obstacles that make men strong. It is not helps, but difficulties, conflicts, rebuffs that make men of moral sinew. Too much ease, too much comfort, and avoiding responsibility have made weaklings and dwarfs of those who ought to be responsible men of moral power and strong spiritual muscle. And so there's this phrase, no pain, no gain. And it's mainly used with regards to physical exercise, the idea being that there has to be some form of exertion in order to have some type of physical gain in your exercise. We have to feel the burn in our muscles. We have to feel winded. We have to feel our heart rate going up. If we don't, then we really won't be making any kind of physical gains in our conditioning and strength training. And what this quote is, the one I just read, it is the application of this same principle, but into the spiritual realm. No pain, no gain. This quote is the application of this principle into the realm of the character of men. It's the application of this principle into the heart and into the mind and into the souls, the innermost part of a man. And as I say these things, my mind is taken to Genesis chapter 3 and verse 17 through 19. And the curses that were pronounced upon humanity after Adam and Eve fell. And so in Genesis chapter 3, pain is being introduced into the world. And when you look at the pain that women have to experience versus the pain that men have to experience, you notice that the pain for women is largely internal. And if you're interested, there's a presentation that I gave a few months ago entitled A Theology of Wellness, the Corruption of the Female Body, and also A Theology of Wellness, the Corruption of the Male Person, where I go into more detail about these differences. But what we're seeing here is that for men, while for women, pain is largely internal, for men, the pain comes from external sources. And Genesis 3 will refer to man's painful toil, and that word there for pain is the same word that's used for women a few verses earlier. But here, Genesis 3 refers to man's painful toil. That is painful labor, painful work, all the days of his life. God says, with the sweat of your brow, you will eat bread. You will have to suffer with thorns and thistles. There is now sorrow in the field and pain in the field. You see, men need to toil. Men need to experience external pain. Men need to be frustrated in our plans. We men, we need to feel a sense of futility. And it's only under these conditions that we look to God. Now let's spend some time in the book of Ecclesiastes, because there are a lot of thematic connections between the book of Ecclesiastes and the first 4 chapters of Genesis. In fact, there's similar terms and ideas that are expressed between both books. And so in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 1 through 11, we have Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, trying to apply his mind to find meaning in his life. And in the sense of futility, he goes searching for other things that may bring meaning. And so he says, I sought out pleasure. You have to remember he's a king. He can have whatever pleasure he wants. In fact, later on he will say he withheld no pleasure from his heart. Whatever his heart wanted, he got it. Whatever his eyes desired, he gave it to himself. He sought out pleasure, but then not being satisfied with pleasure, he sought out laughter. Not being satisfied with laughter, he sought out for wine. He sought folly. Then not being satisfied with that, he undertook great projects to find meaning in his life. He says he would build estates, and he would build mansions, and he would build vineyards and gardens and fountains. And not being satisfied with these things, then he thought to bring to himself, to become the owner of other human beings. He brought to himself slaves, and he thought maybe being a master over another human being would bring some type of meaning and satisfaction to his life. And still being empty, then he sought to increase his herds and his flocks. And he sought to increase his gold and his silver, his wealth. And still not satisfied with that, he turned his mind to music and to singing and to entertainment and to dancers. And then not being satisfied with that, then he turned. Yes, he turned. He turned to that secret desire of men's hearts, to women. to have as many women as he possibly could have and to use them as an object for his gratification and his pleasure. He turned to women and to concubines and to wives, and it says that he surpassed everyone before him. He was greater than anyone had ever been before him. And in the end, he says it was all meaningless. Meaningless, meaningless, meaningless. Vanity of vanities is another term that is being used. He found no fulfillment in his life. In fact, he said, I despaired of life. I hated life. Do you ever wonder, I do sometimes, why the wealthy and the famous, they commit suicide? Or they become addicted to drugs and alcohol, and they do a drug overdose, and they die of a drug overdose. How many wealthy, famous, millionaires, successful individuals have we known that have ended their life through vice? You know, I can understand it if a poor person, right, gets into vice and commits suicide or drugs or alcohol or overdose, right, because you're poor, you don't have any opportunities, there's hardships, life is difficult, these kinds of things. But when you're wealthy, come on. You know, I think just share. If all that wealth isn't making you happy, send a little bit this way, right? Because I'll be happy with something, right? Come on. But you see, because it's all meaningless. Everything you have, all the success you have, all the money you have, all the wealth you have, everything you have is meaningless without God. And that's why Solomon ends the book of Ecclesiastes by saying, of all that has been said, this is the conclusion of the matter. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth. When you're young, when you still have strength, remember God, fear God, and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. This is what brings fulfillment and joy and purpose and meaning in life, is serving God, living for God, being obedient to God, remembering Him, acknowledging Him in our lives, honoring Him in our lives is what brings us fulfillment and joy and purpose and meaning. And that's why when we go back to Genesis 3 and the curses that came upon males, the curses of the pain and the toil and the futility and the frustration, it is a blessing for men. And that's why God says, for thy sake, cursed is the ground for your sake. You see, in Scripture, there is a call to embrace hardship. There is a call in Scripture to receive the difficult things of life, to bear the burden, to carry the burdens. Don't go looking for an escape. Don't go looking for a quick fix, for the easy way out. No, look for the hard way. Look for the responsibility. Look for the burdens and take them up, bear them, carry them, and persevere in the midst of it. Quitting is the easy way out. Staying the course, toughing it out is hard, but it's the right thing to do. Making excuses is easy. Taking responsibility is hard, but it's the right thing to do. Tuning others out is easy. Stonewalling others is easy. It's the easy way out. But taking time to listen, to understand, is hard, but it's the right thing to do. Are you following me here? Raising your voice, yelling, losing your patience, anger, slamming doors is easy. Keeping your cool, your composure, staying calm and collected is hard, but it's the right thing to do. Passiveness in your homes is easy. I'm speaking to men here. Passiveness in your homes is easy. Checking out from your home is easy. Letting your wife handle everything is easy. But leading out in home government is hard. But it's the right thing to do. Being absent from our home is easy. Spending all day at work is easy. But being present in the life of our children and our spouse is hard, but it's the right thing to do. Ignoring problems, sweeping things under the rug is easy. What's hard is confronting issues and finding workable solutions. That's hard, but it's the right thing to do. Blaming our spouse is easy, but acknowledging personal shortcomings is hard, but it's the right thing to do. Divorce is easy. Never been easier in this age. 1-800-DIVORCE. Forgiveness and making the marriage work is hard, but it's the right thing to do. I was listening to one researcher say that there's a stark difference between the divorce rates of prosperous countries versus the divorce rate of third world countries. And the researcher was saying that when countries become prosperous and wealthy and affluent, divorce rates go up. And the number of single-parent homes go up. And so those single-parent homes comprise largely of single mothers with children. The family in these kinds of environments in prosperous countries, the family and marriage becomes optional. It's no longer essential. It's much easier to divorce and then send in monthly child support, if at all would men do that. How many men don't skip on their child support? And let me just say something here. Women, please do not let the father of your children off the hook when it comes to child support. Stick it to them. Make them pay. Make them pay as much as you can make them pay. Because not paying child support is exactly what the man wants. We like all the pleasure without any of the responsibility. For you not to pursue that child support, the man is just as happy as he can be. And shame on men who don't pay their child support. But women, do not let them off the hook. Stick it to them. And use that money, and then use that money not to buy more stuff for your children, but use that money that you receive to give your children opportunities where they can grow and where they can develop. Use that money to invest in your children instead of using that money to buy them more stuff. Kids don't need more stuff. But what children need are parents, and if they can't have a father and a mother, at least a mother who cares for their children and provides for their children and tries to do everything they can so that their children can grow and can develop and to become good men and women who will grow up to be good citizens and contributors to society. But when you live in a developing country, the researcher says you need the family to survive. You need everyone together, the husband and the wife and the children. Everyone. You need everyone in order to survive. The family becomes essential to your survival. Husbands need their wives. Wives need their husbands. The parents, they need their children. The children need the parents. Survival is essential, and families that stay together will survive and will make it through. Turning to vice is easy. Drinking is easy. Smoking is easy. Gambling is easy. Pornography is easy. Prostitution is easy. But maintaining our integrity when no one is looking is hard, but it's the right thing to do. Staying home on Sabbaths is easy, and I know that this recording is coming in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. When I preached this sermon, it was actually that at the very beginning of the COVID experience, we hadn't even shut down yet when I preached the sermon initially. Now I understand that we're living in the midst of a COVID-19 world, and yet still I think it's valid. Staying home on Sabbath is easy. Coming to church, it's hard, but it's the right thing to do. Taking up responsibility at church is hard. It's unpleasant. Everyone will second guess your decisions. Everyone will criticize you, but taking up responsibility at church is the right thing to do. Let's stop looking for the easy way out. Let's commit ourselves to the task at hand, to being the men that God is calling us to be, and by the grace of God, becoming victorious. James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4 says this: "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance, and let perseverance and patience finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. No pain, no gain. The application of this principle into spiritual matters. Here, James is speaking about this. When something's hard, when something's difficult, stick with it. Persevere, because perseverance will do a work in you to make you mature, to grow you, and to make you complete. Romans chapter 5 and verse 3 shares a similar thought. And here the Bible says, we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. And persevering produces character. And character produces hope. And hope does not make us ashamed. This is powerful here. The Bible is teaching us that difficult things, that trials, that difficulties actually do a special work in us. The pain is for gain. No pain, no gain, however. And so if you find yourself going through a trial, if you find yourself going through a difficulty right now, don't give up on God. Don't stop praying. That's the easy thing to do. Quit praying when things get tough. When the stuff hits the fan, it's easy. The easy thing to do is give up on God. Don't. Don't give up on Him. Don't stop praying. There's this thing called faith. And in order for that faith to continue to grow and to continue to be purified, we have to embrace the suffering. We have to embrace the pain. We have to embrace the discomfort. And we have to allow all that stuff that we don't like, we have to allow it to work in us, in our lives. And it will make you stronger. It will stretch you, but it will grow you. And the promise is that we have a God who is able to make all things work together for good. All things, even the bad, even the worst things you can possibly think of, even the worst things that you can experience. We have a God who is able to take those things and He's able to turn it into good. Name one Bible character who didn't go through suffering. Take time to think about that. You see, there can be no greatness without great suffering. Ernest Hemingway said, "The world breaks everyone, and afterward many become strong in the broken places. But those that will not break, it kills." It's a pretty powerful quote here. The idea is that if you live long enough, life is going to throw something at you that it will just leave you completely devastated and broken. And the key is, how will you respond to the breaking? Will you become strong in those broken places, or will you allow it to break you to such an extent that it'll kill you and destroy you? Jesus said something similar in Matthew chapter 21 and verse 44, when He says, "Whoever falls on this rock will be broken." The idea is we need to fall on the rock, which is Jesus Christ, and that heart of stone in our hearts needs to be broken, and we need to grow a heart of flesh. But then He continues, "But on whosoever this rock will fall, it will grind him to powder." There is a process here of being broken and receiving the brokenness and allowing the brokenness to take place, only to heal and to become strong because of it. Some men appear to be utterly unable to hew out a path for themselves. Must they ever rely upon others to do their planning and their studying and to be mind and judgment for them? God is ashamed of such men. Wow, now this is pretty harsh words, pretty strong language here, but can you think about that? Men who are dependent, not independent. Men who can't think for themselves. And how, the question is, how do these men become like this? Well, primarily, it begins in the home, and it starts through the enabling behaviors and attitudes of parents. And I mentioned some time ago, and I know this sounds a little hard, but mothers tend to have an emasculating effect upon their boys, upon their sons. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's what mothers are there for. They're there to nurture and to care and to love. But also, what about the absence of a father's presence in the life of their son as well? We need to allow children to grow. We need to allow them to be challenged. We need to allow them to be stretched. Even if it's hard, we need to allow them to struggle within reason as long as they're not harmed. Now, my wife said this to me the other day because our little one has been learning to walk. And so in that learning process, he sometimes loses his balance and he sometimes falls. And I'm there kind of hovering over him while he's taking his steps, just making sure he doesn't fall because I don't want him to fall. I don't want him to scrape those beautiful little knees of his, right? I want to do everything I can to protect him. And my wife is like, no, you got to stop that. It's okay if he falls. It may hurt him, but it won't injure him. And I think that was a very profound statement right there. Yes, if he falls, he'll feel the scrape. He'll feel the burn. He may cry. It may make him uncomfortable. He may even start bleeding. But that feeling of pain will actually teach him something. It will be profitable for him. Through that feeling of pain, he'll start thinking and he'll start realizing, hey, I don't like falling. I better learn this thing quick. I better learn my balance. I better learn how to walk. And I'm going to try my hardest not to fall. There's a blessing disguised in the pain. Now notice what this quotation says here. It says, some indulgent, ease-loving parents, they fear to exercise wholesome authority over their unruly children. And that's the key right there, wholesome authority. Lest they run them away from home. Now listen here to what Ellen White says. It would be better for some to do this, that is, run away from home, than to remain at home to live upon the bounties provided by their parents, and at the same time trample upon all authority, both human and divine. It might be a most profitable experience for such children to have to the full that independence which they think so desirable, to learn that it costs exertion to live. There's a word. It costs exertion to live. Let the parent say to the son or the daughter who threatens to leave the house, my child, if you're determined to leave home rather than comply with just and proper rules, we will not hinder you. If you think to find the world more friendly than the parents who have cared for you from infancy, you must learn your mistake for yourself. When you wish to come to your father's house to be subject to his authority, you will be welcome. But remember, obligations are mutual. While you have food and clothing and parental care, you are in return under obligation to submit to home rules and wholesome discipline. And I really like that point there. Obligations are mutual. Parents have an obligation to their children, that is to provide for their physical, emotional, and academic welfare and well-being. And children in turn have a responsibility and obligation towards parents. And that is obey them, to submit under their authority and to their discipline. I remember my dad always telling me, he said, Jonathan, as long as you live in my house, you do as I say. Simple, easy. I've spoken to parents and they tell me, Pastor, we want to kind of exercise our authority over our adult children. Of course, that's the other issue. Adult children are still living in the home and still dependent upon the home. And they're like, I want to exercise authority, but I know if I do, they'll leave. And who knows what they'll do when they leave. So I'd rather have them at home. At least I can keep an eye on them, this, that, and whatever. According to this right here, it says it would be better for them to leave. I always remember what my dad would tell me, and I don't know when he started telling me this. I think maybe around the time I turned 13, became a teenager or so, and he said, Jonathan, you turn 18, you're out the door. And I remember I was like, when I first heard that, I was kind of excited about it. I was like, yeah, I'm out, I'm on my own, I'm an adult, I don't need to stay here, I don't need to be under anybody's authority, I'm going to be all grown up, 18, and then it would be, Jonathan, 5 years, you're out the door. Jonathan, 4 years, you're out the door. Jonathan, in 3 years, you're out the door. 2, 1. And then I turned 18, and the time came for me to head out. And the truth is, I didn't want to head out. It was actually scary by the time I got to 18, and so I did leave the home at 18, not because I wanted to, but because I had to, because of circumstances. My parents were living in Honduras at the time. I had graduated high school, and I needed to come back to the United States to continue my college education. And so my parents bought me the plane ticket. They gave me $500, and they said, good luck. And off I went with just $500 in my pocket. I had to work that summer to raise my tuition money, to start school, to even fill out an application for college, and just see what I could do with my studies. And I remember it was tough. I didn't like it. It was hard. I was moping for a lot of the time. I was sad. I was kind of down. I was under this dark little cloud of depression. And thank God for my older sister. She just kicked some sense into me, a good kick in the rear, a little slap to the face, said, for God's sakes, man, get a hold of yourself. And I was like, kind of woke me up. Yeah, you're right. We can do this. We're going to do this. We're going to make it. It's going to be all right. And sure enough, left the house at 18, never really gone back ever since. Just go back home for visitation, for vacation, things like that. But since 18, been out the door, and it's been a good experience. And I'm thankful for my dad for that push. If for my mom, bless her heart, I love my mom. If it'd be up for my mom, I'd still be at home right now. She'd still be taking care of me. 18 years later, she'd still been taking care of me. And so just thankful for my dad and for that push that I needed. Now, but coming back to the quote we just read about, parents telling children, you want to leave? Then you can leave. You can go. If you don't want to abide by the rules of this home, you're free to go. I think about the story of the prodigal son and how the youngest son came and said, I want out. And I think about the father, however. This father in this parable, we call it the parable of the prodigal son. Sometimes I like to think of it the parable of the prodigal father. I mean, what an indulgent, permissive, lenient father. His son says, I want out. And the father basically says, don't worry, I will subsidize. You're leaving the house. Here's the inheritance. Go ahead, take it and spend it and do whatever you want with it. I mean, I'm thinking if my son came to me and said, I want out, I'd be like, good luck. God bless you. Stay safe. You're not getting a dime from me, but I wish you all the best. And the quote continues, my house cannot be polluted with the stench of tobacco, with profanity, with drunkenness, or sexual immorality. I desire that angels of God shall come into my home, and if you are fully determined to serve Satan, you will be as well off with those whose society you love as you will be at home. And I think about the Garden of Eden and the boundaries that God established in the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve, they fell, they disobeyed God. God still loves them. God still finds a way to save them. He doesn't kill them. There's a lamb that takes their place. God clothes them. God covers them. God redeems them. But at the same time, God also says, I love you, but you're going to have to leave the garden. And they have to leave the garden. There's certain boundaries that God was protecting here. And I think there's maybe a lesson there that we could probably learn. Such a course would check the downward career of thousands. But too often, children know that they may do their worst, and yet an unwise mother will plead for them and conceal their transgressions. Many a rebellious child exults because his parents have not the courage to restrain him. They do not enforce obedience. And what's interesting about this statement is that you would think, because I'm so indulgent with my children, I give them everything I want, and I do whatever they want. They just love me so much because I do whatever they want. But the truth is, contrary to popular opinion, the truth is that children lose respect for parents that do not discipline them. Children lose respect for parents who do not have a backbone, who do not have the strength to discipline them and to bring them under their authority. Such parents, the quote finishes, such parents are encouraging their children in dissipation and are dishonoring God by their unwise indulgence. It is these rebellious, corrupt youth that form the most difficult element to control in schools, in colleges, and in society. And that comes from the book Child Guidance, page 241. Here's another quote. Men of earnest endeavor are needed, not men as impressible as putty. Men should not be limp and fiberless. I mean, just look at that imagery. Men should not be limp. Just picture that in your mind, a limp man, a fiberless man. Men should not be without muscle or moral force of character, but it is only by continued and persevering labor that men can be disciplined to bear a part in the work of God. And remember that we're not talking here about toxic masculinity. That type of masculinity where it's characterized by chauvinism and I'm the man and I'm the head and you submit and there's abuse and we're hotheads and there's temper. No, what we're talking about is men who embody biblical masculine qualities. Men who through their conduct and life have earned respect. And so what's our next step? Where do we go from here? Now, I don't necessarily go out of my way looking for hardships and difficulties, but maybe I should, within reason, right? Many of you know that I'm a tennis fan, and one of my favorite players is Rafael Nadal. And when you hear about the way that his uncle taught him tennis and trained him, he would make his nephew, Rafa, he would make him serve always with the sun in his face. So that it could bother him. It was just that nuisance, and he would have to learn how to deal with that nuisance of the sun shining in your face and still be able to serve well. He would make him play on the courts that looked the worst. He just tried to make everything as adverse, the conditions as adverse as possible, so that he could learn how to overcome adverse conditions in his training. And now he's one of the most successful tennis players of all time. And so having said that, how about maybe we park the car a little further? How about we don't turn on the AC? How about we sweat a little bit? How about we exert ourselves physically a little bit more? How about if you're unhappy with work? How about you tough it out? Man, I don't know if I should be sharing this or not, but there's times I've called my boss and I'm said, pull me out. I'm done. I'm ready. And they say, well, hey, Jonathan, we can pull you out if you want, but I think that there's something to staying where you're at, working through the conflict, working through the hardship, where if you're not happy, you find a way to make it work. And the truth is, I'm thankful that they've never pulled me out, even though I've asked them to do that. But they've left me, and I've grown, and I've learned, and I've been able to move forward. I'm thankful for those experiences. And so how about we engage with hardships with faith? How about we engage with hardships with God, maintaining our integrity all through it? How about say for the next 40 days, mark your calendar from today, how about we say for the next 40 days, you will tackle something that is difficult, something that you've been avoiding, something maybe in your marriage, an issue in your marriage or with your children or with work or with relatives. And for the next 40 days, you commit and you say, you pray and you ask God, God, give me the wisdom to see this through for the next 40 days. How about we take up some type of responsibility, something that we feel God is calling us to do that we haven't been doing? And how about we ask ourselves a question, what can I do to help others? And remember, it's obstacles that make men strong. It's not helps, but difficulties, conflicts, and rebuffs that make men of moral sinew.
This podcast is brought to you by the Jacksonville First Seventh-day Adventist Church. Connect with us on www.jaxsda.org or on Facebook and YouTube. We look forward to sharing more inspiring messages with you.